So I thank you for your patience. We're waiting for one more council person. You run pretty fast. Yeah. Good evening and welcome. I would now like to call the September 26, 2023 Longmont City Council regular session to order. This meeting can be viewed at the city's YouTube channel, also at longmontpublicmedia.org/watch, or on Comcast channels 8 or 880. May we have a roll call, please, Dawn?
Absolutely. Mayor Peck.
Present.
Councilmember Hidalgo Faring.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember McCoy.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Waters. Here. Councilmember Yarbrough.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a reminder to the public on the sign-up sheet, under Rule 5 of the City Council Rules of Procedure, no comments will be heard tonight on item 9B due to the quasi-judicial nature of this item. Anyone wishing to provide comments on the 1313 Spruce Avenue Concept Plan Amendment, otherwise known as Bond Farm, may speak during the public hearing on this item to be held on Tuesday, October 10th. Or you may submit your comments in writing before the public hearing to jennifer.hewitt.apperson@longmontcolorado.gov. Each speaker tonight is limited to 3 minutes, and one person may not give or assign their time to others. Only Longmont residents and employees of the City of Longmont may speak during first call public invited to be heard, item 8, and must sign up on the list prior to the start of this meeting. Persons wishing to speak on specific second reading or public hearing items, item 10, are asked to add their name to the speaker list for the specific item prior to the start of the meeting. Anyone may speak, and no sign-up is required to speak during final call, public invited to be heard. We have minutes for September 5th that we need to approve. Can I have a motion? Thank you. The minutes have been approved by Councilor McCoy, seconded by Councilor Waters. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously.
And Mayor, the September 12th set of minutes, we had trouble with the software. We're not able to get those compiled in order to provide them to you all, so I'll bring those on October 10th.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. Do we have any submissions of documents and motions to direct city managers to add agenda items to future agendas? Seeing none, we'll move on to, let's see. I'm reading what's on my agenda list, but I don't need to say it, so that's what took a couple times. We don't have any agenda revisions, so we'll go to the city manager's report.
No report, Mayor, Council. I do have to step out to call home real quick.
Okay.
So we're in public invited to be heard. I need to do that.
Okay.
Thanks.
So our special report tonight or presentation is from the Boulder County Commissioner's Office about issues and measures on the 2023 ballot. And I would like to welcome Commissioner Marta Lochamin.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your patience. Mayor, city councilors, and public that are attending and online. My name is Martha Loachman. I'm one of the Boulder County Commissioners and also a Longmont resident. So it always brings me joy to be here in Longmont. I wanted to talk tonight about the 2023 proposed ballot measures. And I'm going to start with, because it looks like the version of the presentation I have is actually not the complete one. So I want to give one really quick just for awareness that is specific to Nederland voters. So we haven't been talking about it around inside cities, municipalities, because voters don't get that opportunity. But in case folks ask you, you'll at least be aware. So really briefly, the first one is all of the tax measures that you'll see on the November 7th ballot this year are current taxes. They are extensions of, there are no new taxes. This first one is Nederland Community Eco Pass, and so Nederland voters only will be making a decision on a 1.85 mils property tax, and that's about 12.52 in annual property tax per 100,000 residential value. And since 2014, Nederland voters have been using this Eco Pass. So this is just an extension. And the addition, so it's an extension for Nederland folks, residents, to be able to receive their Eco Pass. And the only change to that one is that it will also create the opportunity for Nederland business owners to take part in the Eco Pass to create solutions for workers in regards to the cost of transportation, the rise in inflation, and also gas costs. So that one will just be Nederland voters that will see that on their ballots. So what I will share with you in a little bit more with a little bit more information are the two that we're going to be talking about that are also extensions that all Boulder County voters will be seeing on their ballot. And so this one is, again, a current tax. It will be an extension of a 0.05% sales tax. What Boulder County voters have shown over the years is that they value open space, that they want to have growth boundaries, and they want to continue to vote. So we have several different open space taxes, so I just want to clarify that for folks that might be not as familiar with all those details. This is just one of those, and so it's a 0.05%. This map shows you, and folks who are at home can probably see it a little bit better than the folks in the back row here in the council chambers, but this map shows current open space in the darkest green. Anything in white on the map is in private ownership and may have priority open space values. So it's just to give residents around Boulder County really a visual of when we talk about open space, conservation easements, city, county, that's what you're looking at. And I would encourage folks to look at the bouldercounty.gov website for any information about these types of maps, but also to look at ballot measures 2023. And that's where you'll see the resolutions that we're going to talk about. So our open space currently preserves not just wildlife that we're all very interested in creating, maintaining those habitats, the different types of passive recreation. We have, and it'll go in the next slide in regards to specific acreage here, so I won't ruin that surprise in regards to the amount of land that we have for agriculture, but Boulder County is the largest landowner in the county, and all these different pieces that you see on this slide, I'm not going to read the entire slide for you, is part of the tax extension and what the open space program does. The maintenance needs, when we look at 116,000 acres, there you'll see on the slide is the breakdown of what that means. 25,000 acres of that is agricultural land, 30,000 of it is forested, and 40,000 of those acres are on some form of conservation easements. When we talk about open space, I bet if I ask folks in the room to raise your hand if you've been on a trail or know someone who's been on a trail or have visitors who enjoy those trails with 120 miles, I'm pretty sure we all have somebody who's connected to it. We also, at Boulder County, have 350 historic structures. So if you think about here in Longmont, the Agricultural Center, the events that were happening this past weekend in partnership with Harvest for All Nations, there were over 300 folks there every day. Is just one example of the different centers and structures that we have, including the Doherty Museum here in Longmont. Volunteers help open space in so many different ways. We have 2,500 volunteers that go out one time a year, and we have 250 that are doing different projects, everything from weed management, weed pulling, to trails, not just safety, but also guiding and tours. And so that one, what I think I'm going to do is run through all three of these and then open it up for questions from Mayor and Council. So that's the open space tax extension. And again, nothing new, yet an extension and an opportunity for voters to continue that tax. That is also specifically for acquisition and maintenance of open space lands. So with that, oh, and I forgot, this is my little visual. And if anybody needs a sign, I do have them with me. Affordable housing. So here's the piece around affordable housing, and I want to start with a couple definitions because we probably could have a really lengthy conversation about what is affordable housing. And so we're going to, really specifically, we're talking about for folks at 80% area median income, it means that you're paying less than 30% of your income in your housing, whether that's your rent or it's your mortgage. So that's what we're talking about with our definition of affordable housing. The other piece that's included in this current tax and the extension of to reallocate that funding to affordable is attainable housing. And when we talk about attainable housing, we're talking about that in that same income range between 80 and 120% of area median income, but trying to keep folks under 30% of their income into their housing costs. So those are the definitions that we're working with. And the piece that I didn't say, but it's on the slide, is, in case there's folks listening on the phone, it's a 0.185% sales tax that currently exists. So in 2014, voters created, and by their vote, this tax in flood recovery funding. It was a 5-year tax at that time. And then in 2018, voters used that same tax, the same amount, went for an extension, and reallocated the funding to the alternative sentencing facility. And so that's what we're asking voters this year in 2023 on November 7th, is to use that same current tax that folks are already paying and reallocate it to the first sustainable funding source for affordable and attainable housing and housing supports. So I'm not going to go through this slide. I bet there's nobody in this room that doesn't believe that we have a housing crisis, not just in Colorado, not just in Boulder County, but also in Longmont. And so I'm not going to go through all of those details, but again, I would encourage folks to take a look on the bouldercounty.gov website for those details. What I do want to share on this piece is, how do the county commissioners come to a decision to put this particular ballot measure together this year at this time? As we poll, as we do outreach, as we do community engagement with our Housing Human Services and Community Services and the other programs, the concern about lack of affordable housing continues to be the #1 topic that we hear from folks when they are polled every spring. And you can see the numbers and the topics. This is the other piece that we have the RHP under that orange column is Regional Housing Partnership. And in 2018, the Regional Housing Partnership, it's region-wide for folks who aren't aware. It's all of our communities are represented, and all of our communities now have a commitment in regards to inclusionary housing and other measures. In 2018, this group, with a lot of engagement with community members and advocacy groups and organizations who work in this space, determined that we were, at that time, 7,400 units of affordable housing was where we were, and that we would need to triple that number to reach the goal in 2035. And we know that number they were estimating at that time would be a $25 million annual cost to be able to meet the goals that we have in regards to affordable housing. What I do want to share with you as well, because now I can see that this is not my version of the slideshow, and that's just how we adapt, is what is this money actually going to go to? The pieces that are, again, development of affordable and attainable housing, and development is all the things that y'all get to see and work on in your council meetings in regards to entitlements into construction, rehabilitation, into retrofit, all of those pieces. The other one is around the affordable housing. What does that mean for rentals, for home ownership, for mobile home communities? With our ARPA funding at the county, the $63.3 million allocated that we received for COVID-19 relief, we were able to put $1 million towards the Regional Housing Partnership to reinvigorate and to really move forward together. We also were able to do some funding for home ownership at Habitat for Humanity St. Vrain Valley here in Longmont. And we were able to allocate funding for Casa de la Esperanza, which is a very unique project that's here in the city of Longmont. Those are just examples, but geographically we've been responding to all the issues, including housing. That money will end. And without that funding, we wouldn't have been able to move forward in the Willoughby Corner, which is a 400-unit net zero project with senior housing, with family housing, with homeownership, and rentals in the city of Lafayette. So this is where we are at. We know we have a crisis, and so this is the solution that we're looking at in regards to creating opportunities for municipalities, for our housing authorities, and for housing partners to come forward to be able to apply for the funding once the ballot measure passes on November 7th, so that we can altogether leverage funds so that folks will have monies to use with statewide opportunities, for example, Prop 123, and under other funding sources. The last piece that this funding will go to is in regards to housing support services, which is an important piece of what Boulder County provides, and that is funding towards homeownership counseling, homebuyer counseling, eviction prevention, the mediation services that happen here, and community neighborhood resources at City of Longmont are funded there, and also to continue the supports as we focus on eliminating homelessness and helping folks not get there, but also be able to come out of those situations. So that's the quick on an extension of a 0.185% tax measure that Boulder County voters will see on November 7th, and I'm here to ask for your endorsement for resolution if you all decide that you would be interested in doing that. Boulder County Commissioners did do a resolution last Tuesday. We're happy to share that document, and if that's helpful in any way. And otherwise, I'm here for questions, and I'm hoping that our Longmont residents will share the information and take a look at the bouldercounty.gov website.
Thank you. That was very informative. Councilor Martin has a question.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Loach. I mean, on the open space measure, do you know the current split of funding? I understand that there are several taxes, so I'd be happy with any number you've got, including the total. But what is the split between the maintenance of managed open space and the acquisition fund?
Thank you. And this particular tax that is a portion of this one is a 0.05 that's up for voters to look at every 5 years. That does not have, and when you look on the bouldercounty.gov website and look at the ballot resolution, you'll see the language in there. We did not, it's not set up for a certain percentage to go to acquisition versus maintenance.
So it's at the discretion of the commissioners?
It's at the discretion of the commissioners based on our open space department and the work, so kind of the breakdown that you were looking at, all of those different pieces are considered every year, and we're also in budget season.
Mm-hmm. I'd still be interested in knowing not necessarily the tax, but in the past, how much the county has spent on managing its open space versus acquiring new open space.
Thank you, and I'm happy to find that data and send that over to your group.
I would appreciate it.
To look at, just so that I'm clear, a percent, more or less a percent, maybe over the last
Or
few
dollars.
years.
Dollars would be good.
Okay, and if I had my laptop turned on right now, I wonder if I couldn't find that on OpenGov on our website. We've added some pretty significant transparency tools so folks can see where that money is going. But I can absolutely provide that to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Councilor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. Welcome.
Thank you
for being here. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Could you scroll back a couple of slides to that bar chart?
Of course. This
I'm
one or
gonna-
the other one?
Go back one more. Yeah, right. This. I don't really have a question so much as a reflection.
Thank you.
And I just want to share the reflection because I think this is the time to share it. Given, first of all, I will happily, if it's a resolution, I'll happily vote for the resolution on these measures. I think the work is worthy, and they do reflect. You used the word values. I think they do reflect shared values and how those values get articulated as priorities that then elected officials ask the public to cast their votes on, to see whether or not they also see these as priorities. I don't question that we all value it. We don't always necessarily agree on what the solution is or whether or not, to tax ourselves. I know, and I understand, there are no new taxes with what you're asking for.
Correct.
It's simply the continuation. So I'll happily support these, but I'm going to do so with some mixed emotions there's a bit of sadness for me when I look at this list, and maybe early childhood or child care and early childhood education was a question in here, but it doesn't show up. My guess is the education question was not about child care. So it would be interesting to know whether or not in the future the county would offer the public to offer feedback to county commissioners on where does child care and early childhood education fall in the perception of our community as a need in Boulder County. Because the data I've seen suggests it's at least as significant as housing and homelessness. We are a few days away, except the Friday or Saturday, actually it'll be Friday of this week, is when ARPA funding will start, well, it actually dries up, money that hasn't been spent, but there'll be no new money available for childcare, providers of childcare across the country, right? Projected 70,000 providers will be out of business, shrink their businesses, or raise their costs, and the folks who are going to be most affected by that are the families who can least afford it, right? Parents and the children who will be denied access. So here's the sadness. It's not about what's on the ballot. It's what's not on the ballot. That we at no time have we, as a county, have the commissioners said we value our 0 to 5-year-olds as much as open space, as much as the correction facility, as much as transportation, right? Now, and the last time we were in a conversation like this, I was presenting something to the council, or to the commissioners, where the commissioners had an opportunity to put a question on the ballot, and the rest of us enjoy the same privilege of asking the public to support funding, systematic, more robust funding for child care and early childhood education. Now, you were on the losing side of a vote that day. I think the public should know you were in support of what was being proposed, or at least a part of it. All right,
Yes.
I don't want to speak for you on that. You didn't prevail, other commissioners, but it was the commission that said that was not important enough, or it was not important enough to become a priority to place on the ballot. So here's the hope. I hope these ballot measures pass, because I think it's good for the community. I share the value. I share the priority. The hope is that in 2024, the commission might value children so they rise as a priority, child care and young children and their families, and give the public a chance to vote on those just like we are on these other measures. So that's the reflection, and it's not a request so much as I know we share the value. I hope that's a priority that's shared by commissioners a year from now. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just two pieces I do want to just respond to, and I love the idea to see how let's see here, child care or early child education could be included in that polling, and we're going to be setting up the polling right after November 7th. So I've got that note down. And then I think people need to understand that we are talking right now regionally with our Housing Human Services folks. We're looking at a $250 million minimum of ARPA cliff. And that means that all these different services we're talking about, our communities are going to be in great need. And so where do we prioritize youth and young folks? I totally agree with you. So thanks.
30 seconds. Could you repeat the number?
$250 million.
That's $250 million that has been available in Boulder County. I just think
has been available in our region.
In the region.
Specifically for ARPA funding that we have all accepted and are meeting community needs after COVID-19, specifically related to those needs.
And that money starts to dry up on Friday.
So I do have one thing. Can you go back to the open space map?
Yes. And my disclaimer here is I don't typically do this presentation, so I'll do my best. Yes.
So my question is, it says on your legend over here that the dark green is county open space that was purchased with funds, tax dollars, right, that we want to extend. However, right under that, the light green is county conservation easements. So a county conservation easement is not necessarily open space. Is that true? Or not?
Correct. Correct, because it could be ag land that's a private owner that has a county or a conservation easement on it, and all the conservation easements are written differently, some with termination, some without, some with certain parameters. They're very, very detailed.
Thank you. I've known that, but it is a misconception to people. For example, I'm going to use the latest conservation easement thing that the commissioners lifted. That wasn't open space that was purchased with open space dollars. Is that correct?
No, and it was not public open space. For those of us who live in
Correct.
Longmont and know that that wasn't actually public open space, it was private property.
But because people lived here at the time that it was purchased, they don't know the history. So when it is on a plat and labeled open space, it's very disingenuous, and it brings up a lot of arguments about you're spending our money on open space and then you're giving it away. So I just want that to be heard, because it's hard to educate people after the fact. And it sounds like we are spending their money on open space and then giving it away for development. And that's a misconception that kind of hurts all of us in the end.
I appreciate you sharing that, and we hear that consistently in land use hearings where folks are misinformed
Right.
about the property that they're buying anywhere in unincorporated Boulder County. They're told that it's open space, they're told that they can build whatever they want up
Right.
in the mountainside, et cetera. And so that, to me, is a task for all of us. How do we inform folks, and how do we make sure that all of our staff know who to go to and ask the very specific questions? And how do we work with our realtor community, who are sometimes the first people who are talking to folks
Exactly.
from other areas around the country, et cetera, when they choose Boulder County.
Or changing the wording on the plats, or whatever it's called,
And then we can go back to the conversation about how do we define fill in
know.
the blank. I
Anyway.
appreciate those comments,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you so much. This was informative, and now we know what good work you're doing.
Thank you,
Thanks.
appreciate it.
We're now at first call, public invited to be heard, and this is where our city manager gets to make his phone call.
Oh, I've already done it.
Oh, you did? Snuck out. So I would like you to remember that we're going to call people on the list, and if you're here to speak about Bond Farm, I will not call you. The other thing is that you have 3 minutes, and please give us your name and address. The first one on the list is Matt Eldred.
Good evening. My name is Matt Eldred. I live at 318 Carter Lane. Thank you for letting me be here tonight, and I'm glad the city manager could hear this as well. Again, my name is Matt Eldred, and I want to thank you tonight, council members, for your dedication to providing human service funding to nonprofit organizations serving our most vulnerable residents of Longmont. Specifically, I want to really congratulate you on putting your money where your mouth is in regards to the city's goals of ensuring that all children enter our school system ready to learn and are prepared to succeed in life. You've held up to your commitments on that. Thank you very much. I also want to encourage you, as you heard from the county commissioners tonight, about the proposed ballot initiatives around open space extensions, affordable housing extensions, and transportation to our mountain communities, to hold them accountable for what Councilman Waters was just speaking about, of the decision they made on June 20th to not allow and include an early childhood ballot initiative on the November 23 ballot. I came to council earlier this year to share with you the goal of the Early Childhood Alliance, a group of volunteers that are dedicated to ensuring that every child is nurtured from birth to being school ready when they enter kindergarten. This group has worked for the last 5+ years on a long-term, sustainable, and dedicated local funding source in the form of a mill levy to create an early childhood service district, which would have overseen up to $60 million of local tax to fund affordable, accessible, and comprehensive early childhood programs and services in the St. Vrain and the Boulder Valley School District boundaries of Boulder and Weld County. The Weld County Commissioners approved the ballot initiative on the November ballot on June 19th. However, the Boulder County Commissioners, with a 2-to-1 vote, I will also say, did not approve the service plan the very next day. As you can imagine, this was not only devastating to the Alliance and the early childhood community, but it was also crushing to many families of young children who continue to struggle to find affordable, available, and accessible early care and education programs in Longmont and Boulder County. Since the Commissioner's decision, the early childhood continues to be upfront and a central fixture both locally and nationally as the crisis is about to get worse with the relief funding coming to an end at the end of this week. The Longmont leaders shared data from the Annie Casey Foundation, released the Kids Count data book, which says in Colorado, 14% of children birth to age 5 live in families in which someone quit, changed, or refused a job because of child care issues. There were also many other factors, but another one that was cited was the average cost of center-based child care in Colorado for a toddler is just over $16,000 a year. In Boulder County, that's over $20,000 a year. This amounts to 14% of the median income for a married couple and over 41% of the median income for a single mother, well over the 30% of housing that our commissioner just mentioned. According to the Washington Post article, the title was "Think Childcare is Hard to Find Now, Just Wait a Couple of Months." Nationwide, 3 million kids will be expected to lose their child care slots in the coming months after significant federal funding will end in September. The country is facing a cascading crisis, not only in child care for the short term, but for the long term. So thank you for your time and again, your commitment to early childhood here in Longmont. Thank you.
Thank you. Shaquille Dalal.
If you could take a moment and not start my time, I'd like to clarify that I am not going to speak on any prohibited topics, just
Okay.
in case anyone is planning to stop me for that.
Thank you.
Shaquille Dalal, 219 Francis Street. Mayor and members of council, the cost of housing is a choice. According to the city of Longmont's own statistics, since 1950, the population of Longmont was 8,099 people. In every decade since then, Longmont has added 14,000 people like a clock. People talk about growth as if it is new to Longmont, but Longmont has been a boomtown for going on 70 years, and that is in part because it is a kick-ass place to live and to raise a family. Longmont is part of a national story of Americans leaving wherever they are and going to where opportunity is, of hoping to build a better life for their families. Part of what made Longmont such a great place to find that opportunity is because for 70 years, it was possible to afford a place to live while having enough money left over to build a great life. In 1950, buying a home in America cost about 2.5 times the average yearly income. Today, to buy a house in Longmont, the average person spends about 7 times their annual income. For almost everyone, that requires going into pretty substantial debt. That makes it a lot harder for people who don't have a lot of money to build a life in Longmont. People who are against development often talk about how development will destroy the character of the neighborhood. If we don't build enough housing to meet the needs of our growing city, we will become a wealthy enclave composed entirely of high-income earners like me and old people who bought their houses decades ago. That will destroy the character of the neighborhood. When I say that the cost of housing is a choice, I say that because too many people believe that the high price of housing is immutable, that it is outside of our control. But in fact, this is a choice that we can make as a community, in this room, every time the city council meets. We can be stewards for the place that we live and build a community composed of all kinds of people from all kinds of places, living all kinds of lives. The cost of housing is a choice. Let's make the choice to lower it.
Shaquille, did you give us your address?
219 Francis Street.
Thank you. Georgetta Johnston.
Good evening. Georgetta Johnston, 320 Homestead Parkway, Longmont, 80504. Thank you very much, Council, Mayor and Council, for letting me speak. So I saw the Times call again about the Arts and Entertainment Center, and I thought that what it was we were trying to work it out where we can get it. I just went to a circus on the ice up at the high school van, up at, anyway, Van Brand Civic Center, and they had ice skating, they had circus, they had acrobats, they had clown. It just came on Facebook really fast, so you didn't have much time, and it was wonderful, but there wasn't much room for all the situations. So I feel like I go to the Longmont Trail, I go to the orchestra, I do the schools, I go to a lot of things, and all of it's not big enough. So we do need an arts and entertainment center. So I hope some way, somehow, I don't know if the sugar factory or the other one, whatever's going to work out, that everybody's caring. Because who wants to go to Denver? This here would, it really would be in Denver, because these people were from Australia. I asked them. And they were wonderful, beautiful. Everything was done perfect. I don't know if anybody attended or not. And it was for all ages. So we all need good things and clean entertainment, like the skating ring that you're trying to get. So I'm hoping and praying, and I'm talking because I'm hoping not only you're listening, but the town and different ones, businesses will want to support it and work it out. Myself, as well as all the other things I'm talking about that we need, besides the roads and streets, better shopping, our businesses, all these things to have a good city. And Longmont, I like Longmont. Longmont is a beautiful city, and the way we're going to have a good city is come and talk and tell the truth about what we need and work together so people want to do that. And I don't understand why others don't. But Lord bless you and keep doing a wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georgetta. Ellison Radomski? Is Ellison here? We'll wait and see if she comes in later. Dan, did she leave?
She's not a Longmont resident because she can't afford a home here.
Thanks. Dan Sorrell?
My name is Dan Sorrells, and I live at 328 Grant Street. Over the last year, I have been focused on processes that aim to help balance the desires of neighborhoods with the needs of the greater community of Longmont. Over this period, I observed that many of the arguments against more housing are based more on emotional fears rather than rational concerns. As difficult as it is for so many people who want to live here but can't afford to, rational analysis and solutions are needed. This is fundamentally an economic problem. A central part of my day job is in real estate economics. I work for a large real estate investment company. My job is essentially measuring supply and demand and predicting what prices and values will be. Fundamentally, everybody understands this. If demand exceeds supply, prices go up. The opposite is true as well. More supply, prices become more affordable. For Longmont, that means balancing higher density, using economies of scale with compatibility, making the community more attractive and livable. Fewer units mean the cost of the land, the site costs, the interest carry, legal and other soft costs all have to be spread over fewer units. That increase in cost gets passed through to each unit. In order to offer anything close to attainable housing that is desperately needed in Longmont, densities must be higher. This can be balanced against neighborhood concerns through a collaborative effort that helps ensure good design and compatibility, emphasizing multimodal transportation, green space, and other desirable elements, not by lowering the number of greatly needed housing units. This is how we can help ensure those future Longmonters who want to add vibrancy to our great community be able to afford it here. Thank you.
Cynthia Keller.
Hi, Cynthia Keller, 840 Gay Street. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Longmont Advisory Board and to share a resolution unanimously voted on and passed at our recent meeting on September 18th. The The resolution is a resolution of the Longmont Library Advisory Board urging Longmont citizens to vote yes on the ballot issue approving funding a new library branch and the operation and maintenance of all libraries in Longmont on the November 7th, 2023 coordinated election ballot. Whereas the Longmont Public Library's mission is to serve the community by providing equal access to information and resources for education, enrichment, enlightenment, and enjoyment. And whereas the Longmont Public Library delivers library services and programming directly to its 1 million patrons every year. And whereas Longmont has surpassed 100,000 residents and under the preferred level of service stated in the 2022 feasibility study, emphasized the need for an additional library branch as well as additional funding to serve the operation and maintenance of all libraries in Longmont. And whereas the Longmont Public Library was built in 1993 and was built to accommodate a population of up to 68,000 residents. And whereas the Longmont Public Library provides an essential role in the community by providing free access to books, public access to computers with fast NextLight, fiber internet service, educational classes and opportunities, a hub for accessing local community information, and serves as a community gathering space and a gem of Longmont. And whereas the community would be better served with another branch to provide accessibility and equity to more residents and additional funding to serve the operation and maintenance of all libraries. Now, therefore, the Library Advisory Board for the City of Longmont resolves, for the reasons stated above, the board supports the ballot issue approving a new library branch and additional funding to serve in the operation and maintenance of all libraries in Longmont as put forth in the 2022 feasibility study. The board urges Longmont citizens to fully inform themselves about the ballot issue approving a new library branch and additional funding to serve the operation and maintenance of all libraries in Longmont before voting. The board urges Longmont citizens to vote yes on the ballot issue approving a new library branch and additional funding to serve the operation and maintenance of all libraries in Longmont at this preferred level of service. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Cynthia. Karen Dyke.
Karen Dyke, 708 Hayden Court, Longmont. Mayor Peck and council members. On Saturday, Sustainable Resilient Longmont and Citizens Climate Lobby are hosting an Electrify Longmont event. The event will feature ways in which residents can move from gas appliances to electric. This event will also include our annual National Drive Electric Week showcase of electric vehicles. We're excited to have several speakers, including Mike Myers, who is a national green building expert. Vendors from organizations and companies will be there. They represent expertise in EVs and electrifying home appliances. There's also going to be information on financing, rebates and tax incentives, and jobs in renewable energy. Bring your kids. We have a kids' craft area, and the St. Vrain School District Mobile Lab will be there. We have food trucks. I wanted to invite the whole community to get information on this important event to help alleviate climate change. The event's Saturday, September 30th. That's this coming Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Longs Peak Middle School, which is right off of 14th and Francis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Lou Horn.
Lou Horn, 3817 Fowler Lane. I'm new, my wife and I are new to Colorado. We're new to Longmont. We've been here since the end of April. I have an intersection issue that I'd like to address that I don't know if it's been addressed before, but intersection of 17th and Airport. Airport Road ends in a T at 17th. Right across from the stop sign of Airport is our entrance to our development, McIntosh Lake Farms. In the 5 months that we've been here, there have been 2 serious accidents. Speeding, I'm sure, was involved. One was a rollover last Thursday. And there's been two other property damage incidents occurred. I just wanted to address this to council, bring it up. I don't know if it has been before, but that's basically all I want to say, that we'd like something done, a warning sign before the stop sign, or rumble strips, or a speed bump, or a stoplight, a red light. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you for letting us know about that, and
Yes.
welcome to Longmont.
Thank you. Happy to be here, too. Thank you.
Lance Whitaker.
Mayor and City Council, my name's Lance Whitaker. I live at 1750 Collier Street, Longmont, Colorado. Today is National Pancake Day, National Dumplings Day, and for some of us old enough to remember, it is also National Shamu the Whale Day. It is also, as you know, I support fruit trees in parks, and it is also National Johnny Appleseed Day. So take a little time to think about fruit trees in parks. The sugar mill has come up as an issue recently, and I do support the sugar mill proposition. I would like our proposal and like to get a copy of that if I could. Anything we can do with the sugar mill is greatly appreciated now rather than later. The urgency of that building has been a plague on Longmont for a long time. And so the sooner we get that proposal through the works, the better off we all are here in Longmont, especially on the asbestos removal so close to the water supply. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Lance. Strider Benston.
Thank you much. Strider Benston, 951 West 17th. Alexis de Tocqueville wrote in his notes one time, the Americans are not a righteous people, and yet they are free. He wrote Democracy in America, and there are several aspects of democracy. You know, Aristotle said that it will devolve into mob rule, or it will evolve by its own methods into oligarchy. And ours has mostly done the up one, and now it's threatening the other. There's a book I have here recently, Robert Trace McKenzie, called We the Fallen People. It gives a really good picture of how many of our founders understood flawed humanity, and like James Madison in particular, that understood that if you're going to have a democracy, you have got to have counterbalancing institutions, and you got to have democracy within those institutions. Otherwise, you're going to devolve into mob rule, or you're going to evolve into oligarchy, where the ultra-rich accumulate everything and destroy everything else. And what we have now in particular, we're threatening to devolve into complete destruction. And I've indicated before, Adolf Hitler called up his friend Goebbels at one point and said, what policy do we do now? And there was some complex things about getting money from the banksters and how you're going to build the power. Gerbel said, no policy, chaos. Chaos is the best policy. We have a political party that calls itself that, which is merely creating chaos to destroy our structures that keep us surviving as a people. And you cannot address climate change without a democratic structure. It is structurally impossible because the powerful will take all the power and crush out all of the popular input. And consequently, you got to have education, you got to have history. Thomas Jefferson understood that. John Adams understood that. Let's keep it rolling, and it looks pretty good right here at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Strider. Seeing no one else on the list, Polly, you have on here that you wanted to speak on 9B? Yes, but you're not. I'll speak on something else. Okay. Polly Christensen.
Polly Christensen, 410 Judson Street, Longmont. Mayor and council members. I want to speak about the council's process. 3 councilors honorably voted against the 150 Francis Street property. 4 of you rubber stamped this annexation and rezoning for approval without any conditions whatsoever, siding with the New York landlord investor over the objections of those who live in the neighborhood. This created a situation in which the property of the 40-year resident Augustus Castillo is now completely surrounded, an enclave within an enclave. Is this our preferred future? I hope you'll be more rational and responsible to our community in the future. I applaud what you're doing as commissioners of the Longmont Housing Authority. Government building housing, not private development, is the only actual solution to lower costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. Now, seeing no one else on the list, I'm going to close first call public invited to be heard. And we will move on unless we need a break. Nobody? Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Would you mind reading the items into the consent agenda into the record? Dawn?
Absolutely, Mayor. The second reading and public hearing for ordinances on this consent agenda will be held on October 10th, except for ordinance O-2023-49, which will have second public hearing and second reading on October 24th, 2023. Also, for those in attendance regarding Bond Farm, that October 10th meeting starts at 6 p.m. Just a reminder, that public hearing. Item 9A is ordinance 2023-49, a bill for an ordinance amending the boundaries of the Longmont Downtown Development Authority area by amending ordinance number O-2022-11. 9B is ordinance 2023-50, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the 1313 Spruce Avenue Concept Plan Amendment, generally located at the southwest corner of Grant Street and Spruce Avenue. 9C is ordinance 2023-51, a bill for an ordinance to approve a long-term water supply contract between the City of Longmont and LWM Washout, LLC. 9D is resolution 2023-75, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving a grant agreement with the Colorado Department of Human Services Behavioral Health Administration for funding for an upgraded database for the Department of Public Safety's lead and core programs through the Behavioral Health Administration's Criminal Justice Early Intervention Grant. 9E is Resolution 2023-76, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Longmont Housing Authority for grant funding through the 2023 Community Development Block Grant Program for the Village on Main Acquisition Project. 9F is Resolution 2023-77, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Boulder County to implement the 2023 Financial Counseling and Personal Finance Coaching Program through the 2023 Community Development Block Grant Program. And 9G is approve the forgiveness of the balance of the 2006 Affordable Housing Fund loan to the Longmont Housing Authority to support the rehabilitation of Village on Main. And Mayor, I just want to make sure real quick before that I got that correction correct. Yes, it's Southwest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do any counselors want to pull items off of this consent agenda? Seeing none, can I have a motion? The consent agenda has been moved by Counselor Martin, seconded by Counselor Waters. Let's vote. And that carried unanimously. Thank you. We are now at ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. Number A is 2023-42, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the City of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023. Should this be 2023 or 2024? Oh, that's right. Okay. I was thinking we're in budget for 2024. Okay, are there any questions from council on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll open up the ordinance for public comment. Is there anyone in the chamber that wants to comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on ordinance 2023-42. Can I have a motion?
I'll move ordinance 2023-42. Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Waters, seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Number B is 2023-43, a bill for an ordinance amending sections 14.06.010 and 14.06.030 and repealing and reenacting sections 14.06.020 and 14.06.040 of the Longmont Municipal Code on backflow and cross connections. Are there any questions from councilors on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will open up the public hearing on ordinance 2023-43. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this? Seeing none, I will close the public comment on 2023-43. May I have a motion?
I'll move ordinance 2023-43.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Hidalgo-Faring, seconded by Councilor McCoy. Let's vote. That carries unanimously. Item C, 2023-44 is a bill for an ordinance authorizing the City of Longmont to lease the real property known as 12236 Weld County Road premises as managed by the Longmont Housing Authority, the property manager. Are there any questions from council on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will open up the public hearing on ordinance 2023-44. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this ordinance? Strider?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a comment back, but I would just like to know precisely where is that located and how many units and when is the construction likely to take place. I used to work for Habitat and my body broke down, so I haven't done it for a long time, but I'd like to know some details about it. Any of those three would help. Thank you.
Of course, and we'll have somebody from the Housing Authority, Molly Donahue. O'Donnell. I keep calling you that. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. Anything Irish will
Yeah,
pass.
you can legally change.
You're should be happy it wasn't my maiden name. That was a doozy. Okay, so first of all, just to clarify, we're speaking about the ordinance regarding 12236 Weld County Road, correct?
Correct.
So the Habitat for Humanity property is actually item D. That's ordinance 2023-45.
Okay.
So would you like me to come back to clarify on that, or is there questions about this property?
Strider, was it the 236 Weld County Road property C or was it D?
Basically, yeah, D. I didn't understand the difference.
That's okay. That makes me feel better about my mistake on the name.
Yes, ma'am.
So seeing no comments from the public on 2023-44, I will close the public comment. Can I have a motion?
I move that we move item C 0-223-44.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor McCoy, seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Now, item D is 0-2023-45, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as 12250 Weld County Road Number 5, the premises, to Habitat for Humanity, Habitat. Are there any questions from council on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will open up the public hearing for 2023-45. And Molly, if you would step up and explain that one.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Mayor, members of council, Molly O'Donnell, Housing Director. This property has been leased by Habitat for Humanity since 2019. They actually have been housing their AmeriCorps volunteers there since that time. And in exchange for good rents, low rents, they have actually done a lot of improvements to the property and to the home. And so this is actually, it's a new lease, but it is granting them an additional 9 months to make it through the period that right now they are building their own home that they have purchased and doing renovations there on Atwood Street, right next to the Habitat for Humanity office. And that's where they're going to house their AmeriCorps volunteers in the long term. So this is just, it's not an extension, it's a new lease, but it's continuing them being on site until they can get that work done.
Great. And to Strider's question about construction and who's doing the construction there, it's not a new build, so there is no construction.
Mm-hmm.
It's an existing house.
It's not there. They'll be doing whatever other.
Correct. Right now, they're just leasing this city-owned property to house their volunteers while they build their own facility to house those volunteers long-term at a different location.
Thank you, Molly. Seeing no one else, I'll close the public invited to be heard. Can I have a motion for 2023-45?
I move O 2023-45.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Faring. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. Item E is 2023-46, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the vacation of 2 slope easements and 1 utility easement located within the boundaries of a lot of Fairgrounds Marketplace final plat, generally located at 10011 North 95th Street, west of South Hover Street and south of Rogers Road. Are there any questions from council on 2023-46? Seeing none, I'll open up the public hearing on 2023-46. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing on 2023-46 and ask for a motion.
I move O 2023-46.
Okay, that's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Waters. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. We're at item 11. There were no items removed from the consent agenda, so we're going to move right into the general business, which is a 2024 budget presentation and first public hearing.
Council wants a break. I think this one could be a little bit.
Are we ready for a break? All right, 5-minute break. Thanks.
I will, yeah.
We're back. Come back. Come back, come back. Okay. Okay, we are back. So I'll turn it over to Molly and to Jim.
Oh, man. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Teresa Malloy, Budget Manager.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi. We have 4 topics for you this evening. I want to talk to you about a few pay corrections that we need to make in our '24 budget. We'll go through our financial policy changes, and then Jim's going to talk about the property tax, the long-awaited property tax that we keep saying we're going to bring back to you. And then we have to have our first public hearing for this evening. So we have found a few errors in the pay plan and needed to make those corrections. It really involves positions across 12 different funds. It totals $138,200. The funds are listed on the left for you there. It's basically due to 3 things. A few of the positions needed some revisions to their benchmarks. They just weren't the right benchmarks in the original version of the pay plan. There was a position that had compression with employees that report to that person. And so we needed to adjust the pay for that position. And then just some simple error in the pay plan corrections. There's also a job audit that got missed and needed to be included. It was a position in Children, Youth, and Families, an administrative assistant who is really performing at an executive assistant level. So that one was just an oversight, was not included in the original proposed version. And then the bonus for the DDA executive director was not included. So $138,000 across those 12 funds that will be added to the proposed budget. And then financial policies. So we routinely, every year, as part of the budget process, review our financial policies. And multiple staff members review them. And the policies that we're proposing to you this evening are included in, I believe it is attachment Q in your council communication. That is our complete list of policies. The ones that we are proposing to be changed are struck through for the wording that we want to remove, and then in blue and bold for the wording that we'd like to add. There are several policies where the implementation statement speaks to the dollar amounts that are included in the '24 budget. Those will be updated once you all give us final direction. So when we bring the resolution back to you on October 24th, those policies will be including the dollar amounts that are in the '24 budget. And all of the revisions will be incorporated into a final version for you. And then our policies become effective in January. So we have one new policy that we are proposing to add. It is for the Attainable Housing Fund. So this policy is very, very similar to our current Affordable Housing Fund policy. in terms of the language. One of the things to point out here is the 20% of revenues that will be deposited into the Attainable Housing Fund can be used to cover the administrative costs. And that 20% is what Molly and Harold had spoke to you about a few weeks ago. So then we have 4 policies that we wanted to bring to your attention in terms of more than just wording changes, I guess. And the first one is what used to be known as our sales and use tax allocation between the general fund and the public improvement fund. We are proposing that we rename this policy to the allocation of the 2% non-earmarked sales and use tax, because that's really what it is. And we are proposing that we add the statement in blue that 1% of the 2-cent non-earmarked tax that is generated at the Harvest Junction development will be transferred from the general fund and the public improvement fund to the Harvest Junction fund to pay the loan to Fleet.
I will point out that said Harvest Junction East, and that's kind of critical to that policy. So it's not all of Harvest Junction, it's the new development that includes Costco.
And the second updated policy is our oil and gas revenue policy. And recently, within the past year or so, the 5-year reserve of estimated costs has been established in the general fund. And so therefore, because we now have up to a 5-year reserve, we're proposing that we strike that sentence in the middle there that basically said if there isn't enough revenue to cover the costs in the general fund, revenue would have been transferred from the other funds to cover those costs. We don't need that statement now since we have a sufficient reserve developed. And then a update to the procurement threshold policy.
Teresa, it's me. I was wondering, can we interrupt you now for a question, or would you rather go through the whole?
Now is fine.
Okay, Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Yes, Teresa, on slide 1 or 2, I'm not sure now, you used a term of art about pay compression, and I had, for one, never heard that before. What does it mean?
So there wasn't enough room between the pay of for the manager and the pay for the employees. That gap was compressed.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
No, I'm sorry, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. So the procurement threshold policy, we're proposing to update this to match what was recently updated in code. So this language now matches what is in the purchasing code. And then we are proposing an update to the Human Service Agency funding. This is kind of in anticipation, if you will, of the ballot language, the ballot questions passing. So should they pass, this language is being updated such that only the general operating property tax mill levy and Jim was pointing out earlier, we believe we need to add some additional language that isn't in here, the non-earmarked sales and use tax. And so when we bring the final policies back, we will add that non-earmarked sales and use tax. So as I mentioned, we're proposing to update these in anticipation of one or more of those ballot questions passing. If they don't pass, this language doesn't really impact the implementation of the policy. It will not change the way the policy is being implemented today. It would just exclude the property tax and the sales and use tax that is earmarked for other purposes. And one more updated policy to the living wage requirement. This is really clarification language. There was some confusion around which employees this applied to, and it is just regular full-time employees. It was never intended to apply to temporary employees. So adding that clarification, as well as clarification around the construction, the types of contracts that it does not apply to. This was the original intent by council when this policy was first put in place. And it is how the policy has been managed by purchasing. It's just there was some confusion on vendors' part. So clarifying mainly here.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Yes.
Since we put this into effect, do you have any idea whether full-time employees have been reduced to part-time employees in order to not comply with it? Is there any data on that? Do you know?
Mayor, I'm going to look behind me and see if there's anybody back here that can help me answer that question.
I know these are private companies, so probably we don't have information on that, but going forward as we look at living wage, that's a...
We can certainly get that answer for you.
We can try to get that answer.
I would love that, thank you.
Okay, sorry, one more updated policy. So this is the Affordable Housing Fund to update the, what is currently a 10% administrative cap, update that to the 20%. Again, it's consistent with what Molly and Harold spoke to you about a few weeks ago, as well as consistent with what we're proposing for the Attainable Housing Fund. And then we have one policy that we're proposing we remove. So the Raw Water Storage Reserve Fund has now been closed. So this policy is no longer applicable. So that is.
Could I answer the mayor's question?
Yes, please.
Hello, Mayor and Council, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. Your question was, did anybody lose their jobs after we raised the living wage for contractors?
Or been changed from full-time to part-time?
Oh, okay. Not that we know of. In fact, when we did our surveys, when we first set the living wage, most companies were already paying that. There were only like 2 or 3 vendors. There were not very many that weren't already paying that wage.
Okay.
So I don't know specifics if people had changes to their, certainly COVID happened and lots of other things too. But it was our understanding from our research that for the most part, companies that we were doing businesses with was already paying that wage.
Okay. And I have another thought that someone brought up to me just a moment ago. When you say local, using a local labor source, what does local mean? Is that Longmont only? Is it the area?
I believe we're talking Longmont only, but I'll find out the answer to that one for sure.
That's really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of what we're trying, so I think when you look at some construction projects, especially larger ones, a lot of times the staff that they actually bring in from that, in some cases, aren't even from the state. Mm-hmm. And so they're bringing them in because they're vertically integrated and they're just literally going, we're going to be here for this amount of time. And I think that's what this is trying to get at.
Okay.
Is that situation.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I'll find out for sure. My guess is that the contracting language just says it that way, that when you're, employing local folks, and it's probably up to the discretion of the contractor, but I'll double check for you, Mayor.
Okay, thanks.
And Mayor and Council, I wanted to point out, these are not all of the policy changes. We do have some changes that are included in that attachment Q. but they're just minor wording corrections. And so certainly if you have any questions on any of those, we can answer those.
Okay, Mayor, members of council, I'm Jim Golden, Chief Financial Officer. I'd like to say I put off this presentation knowing that I was going to get some key information here at the end of this last 3 or 4 weeks, but it's just by chance that worked out that way, so I'm glad I put it off this long. So what I'll be doing is covering these topics, some background on the property tax legislative issues related, some of the property tax revenue estimates, the deadlines, and our discussion of the process that we expect to take. First off, and some of this is a repeat of what you've heard before, and set the stage a bit. This year, 23, is a reassessment year. Values are based as of June 30th of 2022. This year, this 23 revenue year, we are receiving or scheduled to receive within our budget in the general fund $23.67 million of property tax revenue. Just to give you an idea of what our starting point is here in the budget process. As you know, SB 23303 put Proposition HH on the ballot. There are appeals that have been filed and they're still to be heard by the county Board of Equalization. So those last two things are still things to be determined before we can find out our actual amount of revenue from property tax for 2024. In May, we received preliminary information that the assessed valuations were up 35.4%. That was an increase of $8.39 million. So regarding the legislative factors, gave some information in the packet, some things that I pulled off the internet, just to kind of summarize some of it. During the 21 legislative session, the Colorado legislature passed SB 21-293. That was in response to the fact that Gallagher amendment had been repealed in 2020. And so that was going to reduce some property taxes. Because Proposition 120 did not pass in November of 2021, the tax rate reductions from SB 21-293 would have expired after this year, tax year 2023. So in 22, the legislature passed SB 22-238, which then further reduced property taxes for tax year 2023. Tax year 2023 is now currently what we're going through for 2024 revenue. And it extended the additional reductions into tax year 2024. So SB 22-238 is turning out to be a big factor in all of what I have here to discuss with you. On the last day of the legislative session this year, the Colorado legislature passed SB 23303. I'm going to refer to that more commonly as what is now led to Proposition HH. So that, again, was trying to address the impacts of property tax spikes. It's going to reduce assessed valuations for different classes of real property and extend those reductions for the next 10 years. It does allow the state to backfill some lost revenues for some local governments, but that will not apply to Longmont because we have, at least not in the next year at least, because of our growth in our property tax is over 20%, and that's has to be below 20% to be subject to getting any backfill. So before the bill can be enacted into law, we have to have Proposition H go to voters in November. If that fails, then the property tax reductions and the backfill set forth in SB 23303 will be repealed, and they will not go into effect until the passage of SB 21-293, the property tax assessment rates in Colorado had been at 29% for commercial and 7.15% for residential. And that had been since the final adjustment made under the Gallagher Amendment a few years back. So that's what we were at for the assessment rates going into these bills that I've identified here, 21-293, 23-238. So then from there, in 22, we had commercial still at 29% assessment rate, but residential dropped to 6.95% for single family and 6.8% for multifamily. And then for 2023, commercials dropping to 27.9%, residential to 6.765 for single family, and actually the same for multifamily, unless I made a mistake in my slide. But anyway, so we have attachment S in your packet is a whole page of different types of property. These are just looking at commercial and residential, but there are other classes of property that have also been changed underneath these bills. And so all the detail on that is also available to you to see what all those changes are that were really just before limited to 29% and 7.15%, but they changed quite a bit under these bills. So under SB 23-303, which again is what's Proposition HH, county treasurers were to provide, and this is information that I would say that did come to our attention during our budget process, but we didn't really focus on too well as we made these presentations and forgot about the fact that this information was supposed to be reported by county treasurers to the state property tax administrator, actually, by September 15th of this month. And this is the information included the preliminary certification of assessed value, which is what we receive in the end of August typically, and then the reductions to that because of SB 22-238, and then the reductions on top of that from SB 23-303, HH. So that information, since it was going to the state property tax administrator, the county treasurers and assessors were encouraged to share that as well with the entities. We actually initiated contact last week, and they were sending out the letters the same day, and they did send us information last Wednesday night that did now give us some new information that we have not discussed with you in the past, which is that, again, now I said the May projection was 8.39 million. We, as you remember, we used 7 million of that in our proposed budget, 3.5 for ongoing, 3.5 for one time, with only 500,000 of that second 3.5 identified, with the other 3 million just unidentified and to be designated later. Well, so now new information is going to change our ability to use it at that level. The August projection would have, it did decrease the, well, it changed the increase, let's put it that way, to 35.1% increase. It was just an $8.3 million, not a large difference from what we saw in May. It's the information we gave you at the beginning of this month. Now, the information we received last week is that with the impacts of SB 22-238, that decreases it so that we would only have a 26.7% increase, $6.3 million of property tax. And that is a given. That has nothing to do with what is on the ballot in November. So immediately we know that what we've been thinking might be as high as $8.3 million will now only be as high as $6.3 million of property tax at the maximum amount. Again, this is before appeals, the outcome of appeals, and of course before what happens with Proposition HH. If HH passes, then that goes down again a little bit further. It would be only a 22% increase overall, and we would only get $5.2 million of new property tax in the 2024 budget. So that's gonna, so we know at a minimum, or at the maximum we can get is $6.3 million. We know we're budgeted at $7 million right now. And so what we are recommending tonight is that we come back with an adjustment next week to reduce that by $700,000 and removing that from the undesignated one-time monies, because we ain't gonna receive that. We could be receiving less than 6.3, and you know, that with that, we figure we should leave the budget as is. If we don't get that appropriated, leave it appropriated, but if we don't get that in the property tax assessment, then we will not designate any use of one-time monies in that regard in the amount that we are reduced by.
So I have a
Go ahead.
question, and then Councilor Waters does as well. So the 6.3 could be reduced depending upon the appeals, is that correct?
That's correct.
And
HH.
so HH we'll know the day after the election, hopefully. However, yeah, we don't know that either, really. But how about the appeals? Or historically, how soon do you get information on those appeals?
So I will be hitting that slide next, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, let me call on Councilor Waters then.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. Just real quick, Jim, just so I'm tracking. One of your early slides, you had a $23 million number as, I think that was the total possible revenue from property tax, given what had happened with legislation at the time. And this last slide, and that 23 million would have reflected the 8.3 million increase?
No, actually, no. I was trying to just say that as a starting point, that's what we're receiving in 2023 is 23.67 million.
Which includes the 8.3.
So the 8 million is on top of that.
Yeah. Oh, so it would be 8.3 million on top of the 23.
In the 23 budget, we have $23 million budgeted. But in the 24 budget, we would have been adding 8.3 million.
Which
out of
now is
that,
down
which
to
is now
5.2. All right, thanks.
At least 6.3.
Thanks.
So. Okay, so deadlines. So those are changing. The current deadlines, the historical deadlines are here on the left. Typically, we would receive the final certification no later than December 10th, but typically we usually will get that in the fourth week of November. So instead of getting it in the fourth week of November, we could be getting it as late as December 29th under HH, because they need to build in more time to, adjust with the changes that HH makes for the assessor's process. So they're giving them more time built into it. So it could be as late as December 29th that we find out about the outcomes of the appeals. I do have a question into the assessor's office to try to find out how much of Longmont valuation may be under appeal and question currently, to try to get a sense of how much those potential appeals might be, and haven't got that answer just yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to get that answer either. So, the mill levies to the assessor, that's from the city to the assessor, is typically due on December 15th. That we need to tell them, here's the certification of our mill levies that the council passed. Now they would be due on January 5th. And then the county itself certifies the final mill levies a week later after that. So the process, so under section 9.6 of the city's charter, the council must fix the mill levy not later than November 1st of each year or such other date required by law. So staff has had a little bit of discussions about that and talked to bond counsel about that as well, about how we should deal with that, because as you're aware, of course, we have some we have three ballot questions that do involve tax increases. Only two of them would involve a property tax increase in 2024, though. So if the proposed ballot questions were to pass, we want to be able to make sure that we can certify those mill levies as well as our typical 13.42 mills. So what we'll be doing is bringing you an ordinance in 2 weeks on October 10th, like we typically would for setting the mill levy. But it's going to be having a contingent approval of the 2.78 mills for the Dry Creek Recreation Facility and the 1 mill for the library. So that we're going to give you a ordinance that, and I'm just, for now, it's not drafted, written just yet, but what we have suggested is that it would be something like, if either of these two ballot questions pass, council adopts a mill levy of 13.42 mills, plus 1 mills if ballot question 3C passes, and 2.78 mills if ballot question 3E passes. And we talked to our bond counsel about that, and all the attorneys think that would be fine and would be clean for meeting our charter requirements. So again, I already mentioned I'm trying to get data on the appeals. This is basically summarizing if HH fails, up to $2.3 million less appeals would be available for 2024 one-time expense. So that's the $4 million that we've already designated, and then would be 2.3 that we would have budgeted but undesignated for one time. If HH passes, then we would have up to 1.2 million less appeals available for 2024 one-time expense. We probably would, if it passes, we would not be able to designate those one-time expenses until sometime in January, likely. If it doesn't pass, we can actually designate those one-time expenses as soon as after the election, probably, or results of the election are known. And then finally, as I mentioned, we will adjust the proposed budget to reduce it by $700,000 in property tax revenue, as well as one-time expense. And the same type of situation is impacting the general improvement district, and the impact is about $22,300 or so dollars. Which I just ran up and got and have it written down somewhere here, $22,600. So we will do a similar adjustment in the general improvement district. Half of that was already going to be surplus revenue there, so that it will not need to be replaced. The rest of it, about $12,000 or $13,000, will need to come out of the GID's fund balance to cover the difference. It didn't have a negative, an impact that we couldn't cover, let's put it that way, or less than our budget amount for the DDA, which also has a mill levy. So that's all I had. We're willing to try to answer any other questions on it.
Any questions from councilors? Councilor Water.
Real quick, Jim, go back to slide 22. Does ballot question 3E, the 2.78 would be for the rec center? Wasn't there another 2 mills for the partner, for the project, potential project with the Y?
Right. There's a 2 mills that doesn't get levied until the Y gets its tax credits approved.
Aha, okay.
So that would not be levied for 24.
It's out there, it's authorized.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
So the simple answer on that one is, if it passes, then in the 25 budget proposal that we would bring, that would just be incorporated in it versus having to move around this November 1st deadline on those that would begin immediately. The other thing in all of this conversation for, I think, clarity for the community as we're talking about the budget is, really reinforcing, we didn't allocate all of the property tax, going back to Jim's point, so the reduction in 700,000, if you remember, we were always saying, we're not sure. So in terms of a material impact on anything that we've presented in the budget, we're okay. It just reduces these other amounts that we said, based on whatever happens, we may have to relook at it in the future.
Seeing no questions on this part of the budget, I do want some clarification because we're still getting a lot of emails about our streets. So I just want some clarification that in this budget process, we are allocating approximately $8 million in the street fund to address some of the issues that the public has been
The
bringing to
improvement
us.
fund,
The
yeah.
improvement fund. Okay, I just want to make sure that I've got that right. Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Teresa and Jim.
Yeah.
Oh,
public
that's
hearing.
right.
So we do have a city charter that says we have to hold our first public hearing on our budget on or before October 1st. So this is the night of our first public hearing. And including the 700,000 that Jim spoke to you about and the pay changes, our budget is now at $443.9 million. And it includes 63 million of CIP. So I'll let you have your public hearing.
Okay, and now I'd like to open up the public hearing on the budget for the 2024 budget totals, or just the budget. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak to this? Lance? Yeah, we have somebody who's going to come up. Turn on your microphone and pull it up to your face.
Gets used a lot.
There you go.
All right. Lance Whitaker, 1750 Collier Street. As Mayor was saying, there is an $8.3 million for streets. I would like to say that that's probably not going to be enough. With electric cars and automation coming into play and self-driving cars, you're looking at a lot more to be put in on the streets. The electric cars that are driving nowadays are 3 times the weight of a normal car. So that is going to put an extra strain on your streets, both in structure and in capability to keep up on maintenance. So keep that in mind that you're probably way short on that. Everybody's going electric. Electric cars, like I said, weigh up to 3 to 4 times as much as a regular car. And because of that, it puts extra strain on the roads and extra potholes and extra dips and everything else. So while we're all trying to switch over to electric vehicles, I want the city and the council to realize that they are a much heavier car. This is just a fact of life due to the batteries. Like I said, 8 probably is not going to be cutting it. Thank you.
That's a good point, Lance. Thank you. Seeing no one else who is interested in addressing the subject, I'll close the public portion of our budget.
Mayor, just on your question on the pavement management program, we're just under 8 million at 7.8. And then what we're projecting in 26 is 9.5.
Okay.
And then in 27, about 10 million. Obviously, based on other expenses, that we may have to adjust it, but that's what's in the fund statement now.
Oh, great, thank you.
Are
No.
there any additional questions, or do you need any additional information, or is there any additional direction?
I don't see anybody in the queue, so I think that we are done with this part. Thank you.
And next week, we will need final direction from you all so that we can bring back those ordinances.
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to move that we recess as the Longmont City Council and convene as the Board of Commissioners of the Longmont Housing Authority. So that's been, let me get back my screen. It's been seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. So the resolution is LHA 2023-31. It's a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Longmont Housing Authority approving the revised management agreement for the property located at 12236 Weld County Road 1 in Longmont. Are there any questions on this resolution from councilors? Seeing none, can I have a vote, a motion?
I move resolution LHA 2023-31.
That was made by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor, yes. I'm sorry, by Commissioner Yarbrough. It was made by Commissioner Rodriguez, seconded by Commissioner Yarbrough. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Can I have a motion to adjourn as the Board of Commissioners? So Councilor McCoy made the motion to adjourn as the Board of Commissioners of LHA and seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Faring. Let's vote. We are no longer commissioners. That vote carried unanimously. We are now back to be councilors. Not kidding. Councilor Waters.
Are you ready for item C under general business?
Yes.
In that case, I have several motions I'd like to make.
So item C is the compensation review for employees appointed by City Council. And Councilor Waters, you have the microphone.
Thank you, ma'am. Before I offer this motion, I'm going to offer a motion, Harold, about your compensation, and I'm going to offer an amendment among a series of amendments to amend your employment contract. Before I do it, I want to say to you, and I want to say it in front of whoever might be listening, if we did nothing tonight and we didn't raise your salary for whatever reasons that might happen, it would show up on the front page of tomorrow's paper. City manager doesn't get a raise by city council, like somehow you'd done something wrong or hadn't had a successful year. If we raise it by $1, the same thing, you'd be on the front page, I suppose, above the fold. So to do the right thing, in my view, and I think this is going to be shared by council members, probably put you on the front page, maybe with more narrative. But I want to say to you that the last thing this city needs to do is be looking for another city manager. That you have performed day in and day out in ways that far exceed what I think anybody could reasonably expect. You give of yourself to the city day and night, over and over and over again. And it's not just the time, it's the competence that you bring. There isn't a business in the world that would try to organize however many, 14 different businesses, right, enterprises, in a holding company without having a whole bunch of presidents of all those companies. And you're it. You've got great staff, right, and your directors. I don't question that. But the complexity and the expectations and the public with which you have to be involved, and rightfully, just adds to the complexity of your job. There aren't very many people who would line up to do what you do. So I'm really pleased to be able to move the first of these motions. Number one, that we adjust the city manager's compensation consistent with the city employment plan to 100% of market, which would be $305,620 annually. So that's the first motion, and I have motions to follow if there's a second. $305,620, which is 101% of market, which is consistent with the city's pay plan for all employees.
Councilor Waters made the motion to raise our city manager's pay to 101% over market, and that was seconded by Councilor McCoy. Let's vote. That carries unanimously.
I have a second motion. In addition, consistent with the city's pay plan for exceptional pay and exceptional performance, I move that we award a one-time payment consistent with the pay plan of 8.2% for a total payment of $25,000 as a one-time bonus. I'll just stop there. I'm going to come back with another part to that, but I'll stop there before I make the next motion about auto allowance.
It's been moved by Councilor Waters to, do you want to repeat that so we get the wording correctly?
That provide the city manager with a one-time exceptional pay bonus. If we were to make that base compensation, it would put him at $330,000. It's $305,000, but the $25,000 is going to be a one-time payment as opposed to in his base pay.
Okay. So that was seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. That carries unanimously.
A third motion, that we adjust his auto allowance to $6,000 a year.
Second. Councilor Waters made the motion to adjust the city manager's auto allowance to $6,000 a year, and I seconded that. Let's vote. Yes. And that passes unanimously.
So two more motions here. The next motion is that we stipulate, I move we stipulate that the $25,000 one-time payment will have, if Harold, the city manager, voluntarily leaves his employment of the city of Longmont, he'll be obligated to repay that $25,000 if he leaves before December 31st, 2025.
So that is a retention bonus, but if he leaves before, if the city manager leaves before 2025, he would be responsible for reimbursing the city. Councilor Waters made the motion. Councilor McCoy seconded it. Let's vote. That carries unanimously.
I have one last motion. I move that we amend the employment contract of the city manager to extend the severance clause or period in his contract from 12 months to 24 months of severance pay if a future city council asks him to leave, period.
Second. Did you get that, Don? Okay. The motion was to amend employment contract to extend severance clause from 12 months to 24 months if future city councils asks him to leave. Councilor Waters made the motion. Councilor Martin seconded it. Let's vote.
And I'm going to say congratulations, Harold, on a job well done.
That passes unanimously. I do want to say for the public, though, because this is mentioned quite a bit, I want to remind them that Harold, our city manager, is doing two full-time jobs. One of them is the director of Longmont Housing Authority, and the other one is city manager of the city of Longmont. If he were being paid what other Longmont Housing Authority directors are paid, he would probably have another $200,000 added to his salary. So we're getting more than we deserve with Harold Dominguez. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, if I can, just want to say thank you. I appreciate working for you all and with you all. and I wanted to say for and with, because I think the way we work together really allows us to be a great organization. Completely enjoy my time here in the community and serving the residents of Longmont on a daily basis. I think that's what keeps me going. And finally, what I wanted to say is I couldn't do this without the staff in this organization. This is by far the best staff that I've worked for, the passion that they have for the community, the passion that they have for each other, and the way they support each other. And so this is a testament to them as well. And I would have been remiss had I not said that, because without everyone in this organization, and I mean everyone, I wouldn't be successful. And so to them, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have another motion? I'm sorry.
I will take care of the
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. This will be a few different motions due to the complexity of this one as well. So with that, in accordance, I move to adjust the city attorney's compensation to 101% of the market, which is $259,463 annually.
The motion's been made by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote.
Yes, $259,463.
Councilor Martin. And that passes unanimously.
All right. In addition, I move to provide the city attorney with one-time exceptional pay of 7% for a total payment of $15,414.
The motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez to have exceptional pay for our city attorney in the amount of
$15,414.
And that was seconded by Councilor Waters. Yeah, that guy. That guy at the end.
I did.
That passes unanimously.
All righty then. Moving along, I move to adjust the city attorney's auto allowance to $4,000 per year.
Second. Okay. So Mayor Pro Tem made the motion to adjust the auto allowance for a city attorney to $4,000 a year, seconded by Councilor Yarbrough. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously.
Okie dokie. So, with the acceptance of exceptional pay, I move that the city attorney must not voluntarily leave his position before December 31st, 2025, or he will be required to repay this one-time award.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez made the motion that with the exceptional pay that the city attorney may not leave his position before 2025. That was seconded by Councilor McCoy. Let's vote. That carries unanimously. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Eugene. You've done a great job this year.
You have. We're very fortunate to have you.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for your confidence in me. I think I say this every year, but it is a privilege to work here and try to improve the community in which I live. That is what is the most rewarding of this job. Working next to this guy really makes it a lot easier. I think we make a great team. I am happy to be the Robin to his Batman. I don't want his job. I don't think he wants my job. So we're in the right seats on the bus. And then finally, after my executive session 2 weeks ago, I met with my staff because my success is their success, and I wanted them to know what I told council in executive session and how I am so proud of my staff, and they make me look good. And so you got a great team here, and I really love my job.
Thank you. I love the way the staff works together too. I mean, you can tell it's a team. So nobody comes in with black eyes or bloody noses or.
Except for Teresa.
Yeah, Teresa does. No, but she's got a cast on her arm. We're not going to ask why. Councillor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I move that we adjust the municipal judge's compensation to 101% of the market to $205,839 annually. The salary provision to become effective upon passage of the resolution.
Councillor McCoy made the motion to raise the Judge Frick's salary to 101% of the market at $205,839. And that was seconded by Councillor Yarbrough. Let's vote. That carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Yes, Councillor Waters.
I want to just check either with Eugene or Joanne. Do we need to, for both Harold and Eugene, add that this becomes effective upon approval by the council? I mean, the language about approval of the resolution, these weren't actually resolutions.
Mayor and council, if I may, Eugene Mace, city attorney. So I think it would be helpful if you authorize the mayor to sign employment contracts for the city manager and city attorney consistent with the direction you gave tonight. And my office will redline the contracts.
And that will be the last part of what we need to do.
Then it won't have to come back.
I move we authorize the mayor to sign amended employment contracts for the city manager, the city attorney. Does Judge Frick? He doesn't need that, so.
Seconded.
Okay. Councillor Waters made the motion for the mayor to sign amended employment contracts consistent with the direction we gave tonight on the compensation. That was seconded by Councillor McCoy. Let's vote. That carries unanimously. Now we're at final call, public invited to be heard. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address us? Seeing no one, I'm going to close final call, public invited to be heard. We're now at mayor and council comments. Council, he did one too, but Councillor Hidalgo Faring is here. Okay. You're next.
Okay, so, thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to update council and the community of it was a busy week last week. Last Thursday, we did get a notice of an accident that happened on 17th and Airport. That evening, before NGLA, I did go out there to that neighborhood and I had a chance to talk to residents. And, and they acknowledged that that was a unique situation. Regardless of whether there were lights or a stop sign. However, as we were talking, we noticed the speed of traffic. So I had the opportunity during NGLA as well as emailing Jim Angstead, our police chief Satter, and the response time, how immediately they responded and, gave me definitive answers as to what the plan is, what the projection, what has been done in the past and what they're looking to do in the future. So I appreciated that responsiveness. So, I wanted to commend them for that, as well as coming up with solutions of what we can do as far as mitigating certain high traffic areas. The other thing that we were chatting about, and not just with staff, but with the resident there, is he took me around to the back where there's some open space or nature area over behind, just south of McIntosh, but west of the development, and there was a lot of overgrowth that was kind of coming into a drainage area. So again, talking to David Bell just immediately, so they will be getting someone out there to clear out brush if they haven't already done that. So, I just appreciate that responsiveness, and it's really just letting folks know, letting staff know that there's a problem. There's been times when I've driven around and I've come across a pothole, I go onto that Service Works, the street repair request online, Service Works. I noticed, even before I got on council, that when I called, it was almost the response time was a little slower than actually going online and doing a written format, just kind of following that line, that chain of command, proper channels, I guess. And so through the Service Works on the website, people can note when, if they come across a pothole or just something wrong with the street, to report that. I can't imagine that our staff really has the time to go around and drive every single street up and down and all around to inspect. So, what we don't know, we can't fix. So really, all of us, if we all kind of come together and, we see something, report it. They've also been really good at taking care of tagging that I've reported on that same Service Works line. So that's, just kind of throwing that out there. There's a lot of things that we could fix right now if we knew that they're there. The other thing I attended last Friday was the LCJP storytelling event, and it was very compelling listening to the stories from our restorative justice program, from volunteers who participate, from a person who was a responsible person responsible for a crime that had happened, or somebody who was in the restorative justice process, what the impact to them and what they got out of it, and just being able to repair that harm. It was profound to hear those stories, as well as from parents of a child who had an incident where they were required to go to restorative justice, or they volunteered to do that work, and just how powerful it was for them, as well as the harmed individual, and how they can find closure. So it was just, it's a really amazing program. And I'm glad that our public safety and the city of Longmont does work with them to redirect our youth as well as adults who just make bad choices. And then yesterday I did tour the Hope facility on Pike Road, and it is just, if you really want to see people who do so much with so little, it's that team right there. And how they are, and every day they, by 9 o'clock, they have taken everything down from shelter, got it all ready to give back to the church for them to use for that space for the day. And then at 4 o'clock, they're back at it, building up the shelter for the night, for dinners and for the evening. And they're doing that every single day, as well as getting individuals housed, getting them involved in coordinated entry. There's so much that they're doing. We have a lot of great things happening in our community, and it's just really kind of finding ways that we can connect those, just come to connection with them. I think the city has done a really good job at bringing those partners in, helping fund through our funding mechanism. So I really appreciate all the work that not just our city staff does, but our community as a whole, for making this place a better place to live. So I'm done.
Thank you, Susie. That was, thank you for talking to the residents on Airport and 17th, though. That's really what we should be doing. So, Councilor Waters.
Mayor Peck, I think we need to suspend the rules in order to give direction to staff. So I move we suspend the rules for a single item.
Second. So we need to vote then on whether we should be suspending the rules.
This will take just a moment.
So let's vote. Councilor Waters made the motion, and who seconded that?
I'll second it if you.
I gotta go home. I seconded that. So let's vote. That carries unanimously. Councilor Waters?
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I think we are scheduled for, we were scheduled for a study session next Tuesday that is now going to be a regular meeting. Is that correct?
That's what I was going to ask you all, because of a deadline on an issue related
Well,
to state.
I think it needs to be for two reasons, not just for that, but we heard from Council, or from Commissioner Loachman this evening, county commissioners asking us to act on a resolution to support their ballot measures. And if we don't do that sooner rather than later, ballots will have arrived before anybody would know our thoughts on this. So I move we direct staff to bring a resolution. I think the county commissioners have one ready to go, back to the October 3rd agenda, so we can act on the request to support what the county commissioners have on the ballot.
I'll second that. Discussion? Do you have discussion on this motion?
May I just add a
Yes,
note?
please.
Mayor Peck, members of council, I was going to mention it while the commissioner was here, but it seemed not in good spirit. You may just approve them, support them. You don't have to have a full resolution. You could do it now if you wanted to. So any regular session, you could do it during that meeting. You could do it today. You could do it and not necessarily have to do a resolution to support one or all of the county's ballot measures.
Would you like to amend that motion then?
I'd be happy to. Before I do, though, I think, based on a text I got after she left, that I think she would prefer, the county commissioners would prefer that we adopt a resolution. I think, but.
Whichever you, let's vote on yours. Let's vote on this. So, yes, Councilor Waters wants us to, made a motion for us to support, to bring a resolution of support on October 3rd to support all three county measures. I seconded that. Let's vote, please. Thank you. That passed unanimously. Do they have a resolution themselves that we could just adopt, I wonder?
That's what she said. Yeah, that's what they.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, let's just do that. Okay, we are now at any other counselor comments? We're still at the counselor comment stage. If not, city manager.
The only thing I wanted to add to what Councilmember Hidalgo Ferrin said is that I did ask Jim to send that information regarding 17th to the entire council.
Okay.
So you all will be receiving that. And they also did connect with the individual as well. So.
That was great. I saw them do that. City attorney?
No comments, Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn? I move we adjourn. So that's been made by Councilor McCoy to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That carries unanimously.